Okay, we can start. I have make the meeting live in YouTube channel.
All right. So good evening, each and everyone in this room. Thank you so much for your time. I welcome you all in the inspiring talk for 5 by PPIT. Sorry, PPIT Tiongkok of Changsha. This is basically our community, Indonesian community in China, and we have like every city have their own representatives. So I'm so happy to have you all here. And before we go deeper to the presentation, I would like to introduce myself as well. I'm Meldayanti. I'm from Changsha Medical University in Changsha, Hunan, China, and currently I'm doing my internship in the Ford Hospital of Changsha. Well, without wasting our time, I might be welcome our keynote speaker as the chief of PPIT Changsha. So, Sister or Dr. Suratul Ilmiah, please, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Miss Melda. Okay, I'm sorry. Internet connection. Okay, thank you very much, Miss Melda, for helping us to be host. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good night, everyone. Good evening from Indonesia. Okay, firstly, let's thank and pray into all that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has given us healthy until now, until for we are as Muslim, we can celebrate Ramadan, and also we can pray during Ramadan. But for this evening, we have some meaningful forum. It's about how to publish international journal with high impact. And we have a really good speaker for tonight. He's my partner. My partner is Central South University. He's also one of my coach for journal publishing. So I hope this event will give us some new knowledge about how to publish journal, especially for us students in Indonesia. We have very limited information about journal publication. So in this evening, I hope PPIT Changsha, as Indonesian Student Association in Changsha, China, we can facilitate our friend, especially student from Indonesia in abroad, and also in here, not only Indonesian student in abroad, but also Indonesian student that maybe have university in Indonesia. So this is very good for us to practice also our English, and also practice how to write journal. And Mr. Usman Bajinka, I always call him Master Chief. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and I hope please all of you all, please take this forum for us, and please ask everything what you want to ask. Thank you very much, especially from me, as chief of the PIP Changsa. I'm sorry, my son, because I'm stay in Indonesia now. I cannot back to China, so I'm here together with my family. Thank you very much. Allahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Happy fasting. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you so much, our keynote speaker. So today our theme is how to publish international journal with high impact factor. So before I give the time to our speaker, let me tell you guys a little bit about our speaker himself. So he's Sir Osman Bajinka. I hope I didn't make any mistake in your name, sir. And currently he's studying in Changi School of Medicine, Central South University. And he's a PhD candidate, yeah. So he's starting his education background since 2009 in the University of the Gambia, and he continued as a Bachelor of Biology and Chemistry, and he continued his master degree in H University in Turkey. Wow, that's very amazing. And then he did a professional course in biorisk management in the University of Edinburgh. And lastly, now currently he is doing his PhD in medical microbiology in Central South University, China. Okay, see, so he's basically has traveling the world. All right, that's very interesting. And we go into a little bit more detail about himself, and surprisingly, his other skill is drama. Wow. Debate and football. Wow, because most of the time, people with academic ability or how to say academic intelligence, mostly they are not into art. So it's really surprising me that you are good in drama. Wow, that's multi-talent. Well, he's published about 27 research in the national and international publication. And yeah, as we could see, he's actually a very, very, how to say, he's not new into publish and writing a research. So that's all. I will send you guys, if you need more about, if you want to know more about him, I will send his CV in our group. So yes, please, sir, we'll welcome you, our teacher or our
thank you so much, Meldianti, and of course the bigger compliment will go back to my colleague. She introduced me as her coach. Actually, we are colleagues. She's my peer. We are both PhD candidate in Central South University. Ilmia is like a sister to me. The first day we met, we came together, and we actually go through that brotherhood and sisterhood.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, I will of course thank her very much for giving me such a platform to meet my colleagues around the world. I believe that in academia, we are all in the same family. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. So yes, I will quickly tell some of my disclaimers for the topic. As you know, today's topic will be on how to publish an article with international journals with high impact factor. Today, yes, that's where our topic will lead us to. And I have a little bit disclaimer before we get into the talk. This presentation is purely based on personal experience. And of course, at the end of the discussion, I would definitely appreciate if people will ask a lot of questions, and that will make discussion more meaningful so that all the doubts can be clear to my level. So I am not an expert, I'm a student like most of you. probably are PhD candidates as well. So it's going to be purely based on an experience. The graphs and images are drawn from the internet. I actually do not own any disclaimer. So there is no copyright for some of the illustrations. I definitely bring them down to facilitate today's talk discussion. So with that, I will take you through the roadmap of the talk. If I'm speaking very fast, Madam Host, you can tell me so that I can speak slow. I understand that English is not the official language for Indonesia, but from the experience with some Indonesians in Istanbul, I had a lot of Indonesian friends in Istanbul. Their command of English understanding is very good. Normally, I don't have problem with them. They easily understand all what I do say. So I believe our today's presentation too will not have any language barrier. I do speak fast, and it's the duty of the host to tell me if I speak fast so that I can be a bit slow. And I want it to be a very lively discussion. So I divided today's talk into 3 parts. First, I will, of course, quickly walk through the process of peer review. And that is very important, as also important how writing a high quality paper is as important for publication to the international journals. And also the last part will be to clear some of the air surrounding publications, means to clear some of the doubts that comes with publication, because not everyone is acquainted to or used to publishing. So sometimes a lot of issues arise from publications, and it's important for us to clear some of those issues as we have such a discussion. So with that, I will get into the talk proper. Part 1 will be the process of peer review. So what is peer review? When you write your article, either a review article or a research article. So when we say a review article, it's the article that you write from secondary data, from the paper that scientists or people already wrote, and it's in the database and it's in the system. Those articles, you do your analysis and you send for publication, is called a review article. So when you do a research where you collect your data, either survey or experimentation or clinical trials, you got your data, you analyze your data, and you write a scientific paper for publications, then that is what we call a research paper. So I believe at this level, we know that we are dealing with 2 types of paper, a review paper and a research paper. We might not be able to go into differentiate the 2 proper, because that is not, that might go off a bit the topic of today's talk. So a peer review is when you send your article to journals, international journals, national journals. When you send in, you realize that you are communicating with an editor. That is the editorial system that you put in your article, put in the names of the author, put in your abstract, you put in your cover letter, and you put in all other requirements that are needed regarding sending for publication, then you submit. When you submit, you are communicating with the editor-in-chief. So the editor-in-chief will decide what kind of review your paper will undergo. There are different methods in which they allow your paper to undergo. So today our talk will be on journals with high impact factor, and these are international journals. So today, basically, we will talk about the review process of international journals with high impact factor. They have what you call blind, double blind, and triple blind. When you say blind, you as the author, you will not know who is going to review your paper. When you say double blind, who will review your paper will not know you as the author, and you as the author will not know who will review your paper. So there is there's a fairness in this. Nobody will know who is the author, and they will review your paper without knowing who you are. Triple blind, even the editorial will not know who the author is. So it's an additional blind review that will bring in fairness, or we call it unbiased. in publication. This undergoes time. It takes time, a longer period of time. Mostly you pay. You have to pay some journals. Some journals are free. It goes on rigorous process, review. They send you a revised edition. You review it, you adjust, and then you take it back. Sometimes the credit will come back after the citation. Like the credit for the work will come back as citation. If you take your paper for a peer review and it is peer review in international journal, you have the chance for your paper to be displayed in database like PubMed, Web of Science, Web of Knowledge, all those databases wherein other scientists will take your paper and they will cite your paper. Once they cite your paper, then you have a position in the academia. It is very important for your paper to be cited. We will talk about that later in the talk. Before preparing your paper, now we are writing our paper for international journals. So now we will have to be very much careful the way we prepare our paper. We conducted our research, or we write our review article, and we believe that this is the best form that we can prepare. However, you having a tangible data, you having a very good data is not enough for you to say, okay, my paper will be published in a high impact factor journal. It depends on how you prepare your paper. It is good enough. Is it good enough to be published? That is the question you ask for yourself. You did an experiment. You have your findings. Is your finding enough? Is it good enough to be published? If you have that in mind, then you will have to work on the paper to see that it is good enough. We will have to talk about some of the items in which you will have to consider to make your paper good enough. Is your research or your paper worthwhile? Is it important? Is it essential? Does it has any clinical relevance or significance to the scientific community? Has your paper is solving any new problem? Is it is it disproving a theory? Is it going to be a new method that the hospital system will do? So you have to ask yourself again, is it worthwhile? For example, if you want to write a paper on the reason why students left China back to their home due to the pandemic, you want to write such a paper and send it to the international journal. That is not important. What are you expecting from your reader? Your readers will look at it, the heading, and they say, wow, but why this topic? Why this paper here? Probably you might talk about the psychological reason attached to students who remained in China during the lockdown. Yes. Now, those who are interested in psychology, we want to look at it, how it is, because this is the first kind of pandemic after 100 years. The global pandemic, this is the first of its kind. So that might be a worthwhile topic. Is your topic adding a new knowledge? This is very important. In science, we call this novelty, and originality are different. Of course, I will come to that. But is your paper, what you are publishing, is it adding a new knowledge? You ask yourself with that. If it is adding a new knowledge, yes, then you have a standout. Your paper has a standout among other papers sent in the journal. Remember, there are thousands of articles and papers sent into journal. So your paper should be something that will add a knowledge to the scientific community. Now, there is a difference between novelty and originality. Novelty means your work, your research, your article brings in something new that nobody has ever discovered before. That's what we call novel. If your paper is novel, you have the high chance to publish your paper with high impact factors like Nature, Science, Lancet, and other high impact factor journals. However, novelty is not always originality. Originality, your paper can be original, but it's not novel. And also it can be published in a high impact factor. If you take people's work, for example, systematic review or meta-analysis, where you do a very good analysis and you find, you come out with a very good findings, even though your research is not new, but your analysis, your information is original and is adding a meaningful contribution to the scientific community, you have a chance for your paper to be published in a high impact factor journal. Is there anything challenging in your work? If you have to ask yourself, what were the limitations during my experiment? You have to highlight your limitations. And if these limitations can be tackled by other scientists, what meaningful contribution will that lead to? So it is very important to know whether you were having any challenges during your work. If your article was on survey, where you were collecting information from people, either interview or they are filling a questionnaire. So you have to look at whether there was a challenge in those, whether there was a parameter or a variable which your participants or respondents were not filling. So that should be a very good question for you to know. If you know that if there is a challenge and you're able to solve that challenge, then your paper will actually give a good one. Will your results influence other researchers? Yes. Sometimes you might not solve a problem, but you might contribute to solving a problem. You do your research and there is a limitation, or you recommend it for further study. This is very important. Have you provided solutions to some of difficult problems? If you ask yourself this, because normally you write your research, you have your objective, you have your questions arising from the research. Did your paper solve the problems that you arise as part of your objective? It's a very good question. If your paper could not solve the objective, why? And then if you have a good result, what is that result? So that depends on your analysis and your last part of your paper, which is discussion. Of course, we will go through some of these important parts to clear more doubts. You prepare your articles now. Now you have your best form of article, but it is in the hands of editor, and the editors will send it to the reviewers. By the way, I am also a reviewer in emerging microbes and infection. So I am reviewing people's paper, and actually we do have workshops where they train us the best and ethical ways of reviewing someone's paper. So now the reviewers will have to look at your paper. Is it a good story? What you're writing, is it a good story? They want to know whether your paper is good. Is it logical? Like, what you are making, is it making sense? You feel like your paper is good, but the editors will want to know whether your paper is making sense. Is it logic? Does it make any sense? Are your information, your communication system, your writing, is it clear, simple, or concise? Are you writing a good English? If you are writing to international journals, of course, your command of English language should be okay on the paper. You might not be able to write as a native speaker, but your information should be simple. And what we use as a parameter is, if you write your paper, you write it in a form to an extent that you will be able to explain your findings to your grandma. And if your grandma could understand what you're talking about, then you have a good paper. However, if you're explaining it to your grandma, even though she is not of technical, but if she is not understanding what you are saying, then you definitely need to go back and rewrite your paper in a simple and a clear and a concise manner. Is there any logical layout of arguments? Because you have to follow abstract, introduction, methodology, results, discussion, and conclusion. That is the layout. When you are writing a paper, it has to follow this layout. If it doesn't follow, then there is a problem. Will the paper be cited? Editors always want to know what type of paper you are sending to their journals. They will want to know whether, if they accept your journal, your paper in their journals, if other scientists will cite your journal, your paper, because this is where they are making profit from. This is the sole aim of international journals. They want whatever paper they are publishing with their journal should be cited widely. So I will talk about why is it important for papers to be cited later on in the talk, and that will help you a lot when you are developing your paper. Is your paper consistent with the scope of the journal? There are different journals. There are, of course, international journals, specialized journals, which they are already on, for example, pediatric journals, neurosurgery journals, medical microbiology journals, which might be even wide. In that aspect, you might have microbiome, you might have mycology, that is fungal, you might have bacteriology journal. So some journals are very specialized. Now, is the paper you are sending to the particular journal, is the paper in the scope of that journal? The editor will look at it. If it is not in their scope, automatically they will turn your paper back to you. So it has to be in the scope of that journal. So before you submit, you have to read that particular journal and look at their scope, whether your paper fits in that scope. If you work a good science and what is the quality of the work. They want to look at it. If it is a good science, they will accept it. But what is the if quality of the work is poor as well, they will return your paper back. Sometimes 1 week later, you will receive email back and you get frustrated because you already adjusted your paper to their journal, hoping that you will send it to them for them to be published. Just in 1 week, they send your paper back. And again, every professor's paper has been bounced back once in a time. Whatever does not kill you, so not make whatever do not kill you will have to make you strong, because there are different journals where your articles can be published. But again, you are writing to publish with a journal with a high impact factor. Do not forget, bear in mind. How do you select a journal? Quickly, you have to find, there is a journal finder, which most of the leading publishers provide for a total called Journal Finder. You might want to find a journal finder, or know the type of article accepted by the journal. If you get into a journal that you want to submit, click on the journal and go to the papers published. You will see published papers. If you're writing research paper, you will see research. If you see review, you click on review, you will see samples of the papers that they publish. And you might want to go through those papers and see the quality of the writing, the structure and everything, so that you adjust your paper to that state. You might want to know some of the experts' recommendations. For example, your professor, your supervisor, you might want to ask them, which journal do I need to submit my paper? They will advise you. Most of the times they are of great experience. You might want to make analysis of journal metrics impact factor. Yes, you might want to publish, look at the impact factor as well. If you feel like your paper, you submitted your paper for the impact factor 20 and it bounced back without any conclusive information, the reason why your paper is rejected, reduce the impact factor, go down to 10. If it bounced back, bring down to 5. This is how you know the level of the impact factor. You might be lucky that at 5, they will tell you something to revise major, maybe we call it a major revision or minor revision. If you adjust to that, you might be lucky that it's published. So you check the frequency of the publication. Some journals will take only 2% or 5% of the papers they receive for publication. If you are submitting to such journals, then you have a big problem, because the amount of articles, the amount of paper they accept for publication is very small. They receive 100 papers in a month and they accept only 5. So I will advise you to check the figures for the publication. If it is low, you might want to try another journal. If it is high, try it. Your chances may be high for that one. Avoid paying the journals. Of course, most of the journals you will pay, for example, SCI journals, of which some of the universities in China are working with. I will talk about some of the Scopus and SCI journals that are very of importance. You will have to pay, but sometimes you might want to avoid paying. There are journals which you don't have to pay, but though the level of peer review is rigorous, it's very difficult to be published, but you might want to try your chance. If you feel like your objective is to publish with a journal that you will not pay, then you are setting a high standard. That will help you a lot, because you will be able to work a lot on your paper. And actually, even if they don't publish it, the next target of the journal, paid journal you are submitting, actually will have your paper published. So look at the figures there, the 10 factors in choosing journal. They said you need to know the aim and scope of the journal, which is very important. Journal impact factor, you need to know. Indexing of journals, how much are the journals indexed. Peer review journals, whether they are peer review. Publishing time, some journals will publish only twice in a year, some once in a year. So you don't want to wait for 1 year whilst your paper is with them. For example, postgraduate studies is time-based. Masters, you might have only 3 years in China, for example. In Europe, it's 2 years. My master's was only in 2 years. So you might want to check for time in order to send for journals. Publishing time is very important. The rate at which they accept, the reach of the journals, whether the people normally go to that particular journal or not. If the journal is going to be on PubMed or Web of Science, is very important so that people can cite your paper. So check for any publication similar to your research article. Check for it. If there is any similarities, then you say, okay, perhaps they will accept it. Because if there is any similarity, that means they already have reviewers for your paper. But if there is no similarity to your paper, they will be looking for reviewers in different angles. Sometimes they don't have reviewers and they will turn your paper back. Of course, it happens to me for several occasions. They will tell me that they could not find reviewers for my paper and I have to go and send it to another journal. Sometimes they will ask me to suggest a reviewer for them, which might not sound very well, because if I will tell them, if I will suggest my friends, my colleagues in other universities, those might not do justice to the science. They might look at me as a friend and haphazardly review my paper, and that will not contribute good science in the future. Because in the future, if I become a professor, one of those papers of which lacks some credits might use against me. They might use those papers against my status as a professor. So I will definitely want my paper to be peer reviewed without bias. Be aware of predatory publishers. Almost every publisher, every scientist, if you were not guided, it happens to me, there are predatory publishers that they will ask you, send me your paper, we publish it in 24 hours. Send me your papers, we accept in 48 hours, 1 week, you have your paper on internet. And I know if any of us here, Ilmia and I are, of course, we are victim of it. And I definitely will recommend all of you, if you are sending your papers to journal, you have to be very much careful with the predatory journals. They are not actually existing. They are just there hunting for people's papers to be published. Because if they start as a predatory journal and they have lots of papers, in a long run, they will become a peer review paper journal. So now they will have to start being a predatory journal in order to feed on people before they will have a standard. So you might be able to check for them and avoid them. Thompson's, this impact factor is very important. We might not want to waste most time in it, but if you are writing a paper to submit for publication, I will have to emphasize this because our topic is writing a paper for high impact factor. Sometimes impact factor is not very important. And impact factor is not very important in sense that sometimes you might have a low impact factor for a particular journal, but that journal, it does not mean the journal is not credible. It might, of course, it will be a credible journal, but for the fact that it has a low impact factor, maybe it is a very specialized journal. Only few people, only few scientists around the world are working on those particular type of topics. For example, neurosurgery. Only few scientists are on neurosurgery. So only neurosurgery papers are going there. And remember, impact factors increase if more reviews, like every 2 years, they increase it. And you know, the more papers are cited, the higher that particular journal's impact factor is going. If a particular journal is concentrating more on review articles, the tendency of that journal to be higher in impact factor is high. Journals who will neglect, will not publish review articles, only research articles, normally will have a low impact factor. However, this does not mean that these particular journals are not credible. These might be, of course, a decent journal, but because they are only concentrated on the specialized field and only accepting research paper, the level of people citing their work will be low, and of course, they will have a low impact factor. Do not be discouraged. Try, in fact, as much as possible to compare journals with speciality. The impact varies across discipline. If you submit your paper with a specialty, if you are a pediatrician, or you are a gynecologist, or you are a nurse, you might want to submit your paper to a nurse-related journal, because there you have people who actually are your peer, and the review they do will be a peer review. It will be credible. Those people are, of course, either at your level or even above your level, and they will fairly review your paper, and your paper will be very much interesting. And then it will add a meaningful contribution to the scientific journal. Item by item impact. Sometimes you don't differentiate items. Letters can be cited many times, for example, but impact factor does not distinguish between any item. So some journals might receive commentary, letter to editors, expert opinion, short communication, mini review, systematic review. Those might be some of the type of papers found in that particular journal, and the impact factor is high. Only few research papers are there. So if you submit your research paper in that particular journal, yes, of course, they might accept it because they have few. Again, but then the type of peer review they did on your work might not be enough. So at the end of the day, your work will be read by scientists in a larger perspective. Sometimes your information are not credible, so people will not cite your work. And of course, you want your work to be cited. So request authors cite their papers. And yes, you have to expect this. Top journals, quickly we'll move from this slide. If there is a journal for cancer, this journal for cancer is the one with the highest impact factor. If you look at the diagram here, 115 impact factor. And then of course you have some journal for medicine, and then the New England Journal, they call it New England Journal for Medicine. Then you have Science, Lancet, JAMA, all those are very big journals. But if you look at the other side, the table there, you will see some of the impact factor rates. Generally, for example, Nature, Science, Nature Communication. I actually have 2 papers with Nature Communication under review. I hope those will be accepted, and then I will see myself another level. It's always good to, of course, aim for high impact factor journals. Nature is very common. So this brought us to the second part of the talk, writing a high quality paper. Now, when you are writing a paper, first, of course, you have to write a title. So when you say a catchy title, it will not, of course, be a title for BBC or title for Al Jazeera. For example, the Evergreen ship has been stranded in the Suez Canal. So if you see every day BBC will come with a new title. Billions have been lost due to Evergreen. So if those kind of paper articles or titles are, of course, attracting people's attention, but not technical. In the scientific peer review, your title should be technical and catchy as well. So if someone look at your title, should actually need to have an interest in it. That is, it has to be a strong title to publish an article with high impact journals, a strong title. However, your article should not always answer your question. For example, you might want to say the origin of COVID-19 pandemic is in the mystery. Of course, everybody knows the origin is in the mystery. That is not. But you can say a clue, a hint about the origin of COVID-19 pandemic. Then people will say, wow, let me go through and read the abstract because the title is catchy. So you try to make people, at least you try to make audience a bit suspicious. That will help a lot. So the documents of the title should be informational. Of course, you have to inform people with the title. It has to be informational. Introduce catchy terms, informing the readers of the discovery. It must be clear, concise to the reader that can know the paper. You don't have to write big terms, big or abbreviations on your title. It has to be simple and then technical so that people will understand actually what you are trying to say. The do's and don'ts for the title is use action verbs to make it lively. You know, interesting discovery coming out of the origin of COVID-19. So we are using the action verb. Interesting discovery is coming out. So keep it short, not more than 12 or 12 words. It's too much. 12 is too much. 10 to 12 words should be enough. If it is more than that, you are writing a very long title, which is not good. It has to be short. Don't use generic words like the study or investigation. Public health students are always fond of that, and they are making a long title for reviewers. The evaluation, the knowledge, attitude, practice of blah, blah, blah. You might not want to write that, of course. The study is on CAP, knowledge, attitude, and practice, but what is it on? Malaria prevention or neglected factors or incidents or risk factors. You might want to say risk factors of malaria. You know, the Indonesian perspective, that's fine. Then if you read from the abstract, you will realize that the study was an observational study or it was on CAP. So you don't have to write knowledge, attitude, practice, or no, journals are not actually taking such. So you have to write your title, even though it is a CAP. Use necessary details. Don't write too much things on the title because your abstract and your paper will explain everything in detail. Use unknown abbreviations and jargons. Don't use them. If you use, like I said, don't use jargons or abbreviations. Jargons might be one language. For example, if you want to say nosocomial infection, those in the microbiology sector will know actually, or those medical doctors will know nosocomial infections are infections that you get from hospital or hospital-acquired infection. But if you say hospital-acquired infection, even a layman will understand the title. But if you say nosocomia and then you stop there, somebody who is not interested might say, I don't have time to check for nosocomia. So it has to be non-jargons. You might use a question mark. Yes, you might use a question mark. You might say today's today's available vaccine for COVID-19. Is it the last solution? A question mark. Then people will now say, now this paper is an argumentative paper. You know, this author has something to say about the vaccine. It's telling us whether it is the last solution. You know, so you might use a question mark in your title. Of course, you use puns, you might use metaphors or play words. Don't use puns or metaphors or plays on words. Metaphors are literature. Scientists are not interested in literature. Remember, not all your audience are native speakers, so you might want to avoid literature. I remember in 2016, when I was writing my first paper, I was going to write almost all the literature I know from high school. So when I sent to journal, the first thing they were, of course, most of the comments were use normal English. You don't have to use literature. So from there, I stopped using big words or words that might have a different meaning to a different person. Your abstract will have to be clear. Remember, this is the summary of your paper, the summary of your entire paper. Anything that you could not make it here, in the paper here, make it clear, then that means you actually are not writing a good abstract. Look at the picture down there. That is one of my abstract. And it is called structured abstract. There are abstract that is not structured. That means you don't have to write background, forward, conclusions, or keywords. You have to fuse the information together. Those are what we call non-structured abstract. But again, it depends on the journal you are sending. The journal will advise you what type of abstract you will have to use. So that should not be a problem. In fact, if you put your information in the system, in the editorial, you send it, quickly they will remind you to change your paper to their format. A standard predefined format is the summary of your paper. This is called abstract. The first few lines will have to be necessary information. Anything you write on abstract will have to be necessary information, no duplicate. The history of the questions, the problem will be the first paragraph. You might introduce your topic, your problem, the background of your study in the first 2 sentences. Enough. You might want to talk about the research gap, the knowledge gap, the problem existing. Why do you want to put? What makes you study this thing, this particular topic? Then you summarize. Then when you do that, you might finish your paper with your objective. The first part, this last sentence will be your objective of the abstract. That is only 1 line. Then you come down to outline the subject, highlight the problem that the article is trying to address, summarize the main results. You go down as that way, then explains the benefits of the usefulness of the results. Then you will draw a conclusion. The summary results section should provide some of the details of the method. Some might need you to explain the method you use, but it has to be brief in the abstract. You don't have to waste much time on the methods. Of course, your methods is in the paper proper. The reviewers will have to see it. You should not try to balance too much information in the abstract. Your abstract, once it has too much information, it becomes too much. In fact, some journals will restrict you to 250 words, 300 words. So your abstract should be short, precise, and concise, and informative. Avoid the confusion. You don't want to publish or reader to be frustrated with abstract required for several chapters. You don't have to write all the chapters in your abstract. For example, you don't need discussion chapter in your abstract. Your conclusion should actually tell us what you have concluded from the paper. So once you write your background, you actually make your objective depending on the journal requirement, your method, if you want just 2-3 lines. Your results is more important, in fact, in the abstract. And then what you concluded from the results, because your results will give you something that is conclusive. So when you come to the writing of the paper, this is where many scientists or early researchers fall into a trap. We were all victims of this. We were all not able to write a concise, a clear, and succinct paper. We were not able to effectively communicate our ideas on paper. But if you want to write a standard paper that is going to be accepted for peer review in a high impact factor journal, you have to communicate effectively. You have to write standard English. You don't have to impress big words or jargons, standard English. And your information communication will be, you have to put your idea across on the paper. Your idea is what matters. You have to learn the basics of writing and communication proficiently. Of course, you might not be a native speaker and your English language might not improve instantly. Yeah, but you might want to write something that can make a sense. And even though you are not able to send that format of the paper, you might want to talk to a native speaker or proofreading and editing service. Some journals even provided that, but I would advise you not to do such because they are earning extra money from you for your paper to be reviewed. When actually your colleagues, your peer, your supervisors, or other students, for example, we have our proofreading and editing service. We do it at a low cost. So you don't have to go to the international journals to pay in dollars for your peer, for your for the correction of the English. And from experience, because I do had this argument with my supervisor, you send it, some journals, they are profit-based. Even though your English, your writing is different. For example, American English is different from British English, which is also different from the English spoken in Australia and Canada. So this we have to put in at the back of your mind. You might want to put that one. You might want to send it to an American journal, but your writing format was in English. You use English keyboard to write. So and they look at it. Actually, they felt like your English is not enough. You want to write in their format, and they take money from you. Actually, you can do this yourself, or you can send it to low cost or actually a native speaker. I would discourage you to do, because normally if they will take your paper to write your English, they will have the information before going for peer review. At that point, they might even agree that your paper is not suitable. But even though they will go through your English language editing, you pay them, at the end of the day, they will return your paper back to you. The only advantage is, yes, your paper will now be devoid of English language communication barrier. But again, those reading to adjust your English language communication are not normally scientists. So you have to be very much careful with that. You have to write short, unambiguous, and concise English language. Each sentence should add enough new information. Like we will have to reduce redundancy. Redundancy means you don't have to write a sentence that is not containing a new idea. Remember, this is a scientific community. You are representing a big information in a short paper. So any sentence you are writing should be with a new information. If the sentence has no information, it's redundant. You don't have to put it there. You have to analyze whether each word is worthwhile. You have to use word by word. In English language, sometimes it's called tautology. Two words having the same meaning, just take one. You don't have to impress the reviewers or the editor that your English language is good. At the end of the day, it's your science that matters, not English language. If you want to convince people, you go for TOEFL or IELTS. to go for exams and convince those people that your English language is good. So you omit unnecessary words. Sulkin and White rule this in Elements of Style. Omit it. Unnecessary words, omit them. If you are writing your research paper and you are submitting to the journal, and remember your information, your results, your data will make a very greater part of your paper. Those visualization elements, we call them, the use of figures, the use of graphs, the tables, they are very important. The schematic, the pathway, the biological pathway, for example, even the public health, you might the conceptual documents, you might want to add some of those things. And now, of recent, most of these journals are requesting for a graphical abstract, where you draw a graph as a summary of your entire paper, and then you write a description under it. That is very important. Now, most of the journals will ask your graphical abstract. And time in, time out, I will have to quickly draw a graphical abstract for my paper before submitting. So your figures and tables are the heart of your documents. If your figures are correct, they are very good, and the figure quality is very important, because the journals will ask you to adjust your figure quality, and your tables are readable, not a pack of a whole lot of long table with big words, number of word counts too much. That's not going to add up, because the reviewers will actually, and the sequence of the tables should be logical. Once you read and actually make a comprehension of your paper. They are the heart of your document. Figures and tables are usually the fastest way in which reviewers will actually understand your information, because these are your information. This is the information you are trying to put across. It has to be clear, not complicated. And once you look at it on the table, you look at the graph, you look at the schematic diagram, it will be able to explain something. Many readers will jump straight to the figures. If they have an idea of what you're talking about, they look at it straight on the figures. If the figures are properly made out and they are sending information, they are impressed with it. But if figures is bogus, the table is ununderstandable, actually they are trying to lose interest in your paper, because you are communicating to people of different backgrounds at the end of the day. The figures must be visually represent their findings and logically ordered and corresponds to the history. Models are actually ideal for presenting. Sometimes you have data plots, images, schematics, and maps. You might want to talk to data scientists, people who are interested, who are working as data. If you actually do a big research or a good one and you feel like it's a novel idea, and then you find it difficult to put your information in a nice visual elements, you might want to talk to some of those people, statisticians or data scientists, to help you analyze your data in a coherent manner. And now there are softwares in which your information can be put in a very nice graphical design in a short and precise form. And of course, every journal we want that one to be as a front page. Focus your paper productivity. What your paper produced. If you focus more on that one, actually your chances of your paper being accepted for peer review is high. Not how you do it, but what has it produced. Focus on that. Focus on the links between one's research. Someone had did a research and stopped there. Another one has stopped there. And your research has found out where they could not move in. Point it out. You can say Ilme et al. 2020 concluded that this particular is blah, blah, blah. However, then your research is however, from our findings, point it out. That's your productivity. If your research has disproved a theory, point it out, make it clear. That is your productivity. If you have a lot of productivity in your paper becomes novel, it becomes original. Your research and written articles in Destination Diary, and you must be careful and must be done carefully and clearly explained in the cover letter. I will explain to you how you prepare a cover letter. That is one of the most important aspects in publishing with high impact factor journal, cover letter. And do not criticize or discuss any published article. You don't have to be harsh on people's or your predecessors or the scientists who did something similar. You don't have to be harsh, just normal, be lame, and then be conscious of the language you are using. And this should not send any negative message about publisher's editing choice. And your main goal is to show how your work is evolving. Revising, adapting, or replying to previous published research should be on open, informative. It should be valuable dialogues. It should be clear and a simple, ethical language. You promote the knowledge and the application in the field. That's your productivity. Your paper should promote a knowledge and the application in the field. Some research might lead to a production of new methods, new technology, for example, artificial insemination. And the artificial insemination, and of course, the artificial knowledge, the AI, the use of the Python. Those are the new techniques in which actually science is moving on. The R language. Actually, I attended one workshop on those, and I have a big interest in it. I think in the long run, I definitely have to go and attend some of those courses, and it will help a lot in developing. Remember, you are not in a competition with anyone. So just write your findings in a clear and a coherent manner, add on to the productivity of your paper, your important points, make them stand out. You know, the questions that they've already solved, the mystery that they've solved, the problems they unearth, make them clearly. You don't have to be competing with anyone. There is no competition. It's a global scientist. If you want to compete papers that are already published, my friend, definitely you might not end up surviving at the end of the day, because there are thousands of papers in the database. You might want to do a police check at the immigration office. They stop you and they check your documents. If you finish your paper, you write your paper, and now you are coming to submit, please take time to do your police check. Your research must be robust and solve a significant problem. If you have that one, mark it. Should have a serious consequence, both the application and something more fundamental. More fundamental, mark it. You can do a quick review by informing a family member, sometimes a friend or a neighbor with no prior knowledge of your research. No, a layman. You can ask the person to read and ask the person, what do you understand from it? If that particular person will tell you something at least halfway of what you write, it's okay. But if the person is telling you that I could not understand anything, to be honest, then definitely something is wrong with your paper. Do they immediately understand the problem of your paper? That's a question that you should ask for yourself. If yes, you are on a good track. If no, rewrite your paper. Even if you respond to the big problem, your research may not be powerful enough by nature or science or self into account. Yes, sometimes you might have solved a big problem, but your paper is not going to be enough by nature or science. If that happens, don't kill yourself. No suicide committing. Take faith, try another law or middle or another high impact factor journal. At the end of the day, it's not nature or science or self that will make you who you want to be in the future. Of course, it's nice to publish with those, but they are not the only good journals. I will explain the reason at the later part of the discussion. These journals typically look for studies on a range of methods. We are talking about science, nature, and cells. They look for a range of methods. The method you use, they want to know. Your method should be new. Probably nobody will have to use that method. What were the parameters you are looking for? Is it a model system you are working on? That's what they are interested in, or whatever is appropriate for the research. So you might not be able to, even though your research is good, is perfect, you and your supervisor agree that is the best in your department, you send it to nature, they turn it down. You turn it to science, they turn it down. Cells, the same thing. So actually they are looking for what you don't put here. But you have what they are not looking for. So your paper is not bad. Write an effective results and discussion. Sometimes, of course, these two must not be the same. They must not be in the same subheading, of course. But an effective results section is clear and easy to understand. Like I say, you have to use some features, unexpected findings, and provide statistical analysis of the research. Use different paragraph headings to describe a concrete findings. For example, at your discussion part, if there is a concrete findings, you might want to use a separate paragraph so that it will stand out. Use the similar headings for figure legend titles to ensure the data is easy to understand. Together, you tie your results with discussions. Make the discussion correspond to your results. The way you represent your results, that's the same format you follow to make a discussion. Each section of the results discuss that one separately as your discussion part. If it is meaningful, if the result part is not significant, you don't want to discuss it. You don't have to say everything about the results. However, whatever results you put on your paper, you have to write something about it at the discussion part. Don't wait reviewers to ask, you put that results there, so what? It brings you down. Whatever results you put there, you have to say something about it at the discussion part. Make emphasis on the results with significance. Do not put any results that will not be discussed. Like I said, avoid repeating results in different parts of the paper. If you write results, that's enough. At the discussion part, you might not want to use the figures or anything. Of course, you might use some considerable percentage or ratios, but you don't have to write the exact figures from the results as part of your discussion because it's already on the figure or in the table. Avoid repeating it. At the conclusion part, give a strong impact of the conclusion. That's the last part. It has to be very impactful. Was your objective achieved? Mention it there. The objective result, blah, 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 mention it there. Elaborate on the existing knowledge of the paper has. You discuss the significance of the paper at the conclusion part, and if there is any limitation, say it one sentence, and then you suggest a future work. This is how a good scientific paper. In fact, a good scientific paper will have to point out a limitation where you will suggest a feature or further study. The guidance contents will be, is it true? Yes, for your search, is your information, is it true? If it is yes, so why? What is why? So what? You know, what is the result of that? At the conclusion part, you will have to say whether your paper has solved your objective. And then if it solves, then what? Put it there for further recommendations or blah, blah, blah. It has to be clearly spelled in the conclusion part. Mind your references. Cite the main scientific publications in which your work is based on, the main one. You don't have to cite many or irrelevant works. Do not use too many references. It is not a yardstick. It is not a parameter to say, I will have to write 100 references so that my paper will be accepted. No, that's a false analogy. It's not. The number of the references does not guarantee your paper to be published. And so you fully understand the material you are referencing, because reviewers are very much conscious, and most of the reviewers has been reviewed thousands of papers for now. Any information you said, and actually sometimes they know where you're getting it from, and they might want to check. If they check the information you put on your paper and does not correspond to the reference, you have a kickback of it, because they will work in a way in which you think it does. Keep self-citations to a minimum. Actually, myself, I'm fond of doing it. I definitely will want to cite my paper. However, of recent, I'm making considerable enough time on that. If the paper is outside the scope of the previous papers, I neglected it. I don't cite my paper. But if the paper is similar to some of those, I cite it. Again, self-citation is not going to add up, because if you are looking for your index, your own scientific index, they normally don't count your self-citation. So you don't have to be worried about citing your paper. Of course, some university requirements will want you to cite the papers that are published in their university, so that actually it will go and add up to their university ranking. You might abide by the rules of that, so that your paper will be paid, because they actually will be funding your research. So you can write at least a minimum of 5 of their papers research, but it has to be genuine. You don't have to be citing it irrelevantly. Avoid excessive citation for publication from the same region. The same information, you don't have to write 1 or 2, 3 references. You don't have to. In fact, that should only come from the introduction parts. Then the rest, you don't have to be citing 2 references for only 1 information. 1 is enough, so long it's legit. Use referencing software like EndNotes. You might not have time to use EndNotes or Zenote or Zitro. So some of those will help you to arrange your reference so that you will not miss. I used to do that, but I'm very much still comfortable with manual. And my colleagues will always say, why are you still manual? I say, because I am manual. I am doing it because I feel more comfortable with it, and hardly I miss my references, because I'm very much focused when it comes to that. So You might want to acknowledge those who help your work. It's very important because a good scientific paper will not complete without the help of many groups. Apart from those who are co-authors, those who help in one way or the other, they help advising, financial support, funding bodies, those who supply you with the reagents, materials, you might want to acknowledge them. It's very important. And if there are professors who actually design or help, put their name on the acknowledgement, it will add up. However, it does not guarantee your paper to be published because a particular professor is there. No. You just have to acknowledge those credits given to or due to. Write a good cover letter. Like I said, when you finish your paper, now you are submitting, you submit with a cover letter. Cover letter is the escort. If you are a patient, someone is escorting to the hospital, the person has to be conscious. If someone who is escorting you is not conscious, there will be no meaningful communication between you and a medical doctor. For in cases you are already unconscious. So writing a good cover letter is as important as having a good escort to the hospital. Start your cover letter by stating why you think the paper is good to fit for this journal. There is a template sometimes for the journals that you can download it and then you put your information according to that. However, you have to include your background information that is relevant, what does not fit in your abstract, put it in the cover letter. Focus on answering why you think the question you set to address is important and then why and what you found is so exciting. Inform the reviewers if there is any controversy or competition, you must know. If there is any conflict of interest, you might want to write it there. If there is any reviewer you know in their journal that if the person reviews your paper, there is a conflict of interest, put it clearly at the cover letter, there is a conflict of interest. But that does not happen with the early researchers. Normally it happens with big professors, they know each other. Do not include the abstract. You don't have to copy the abstract as your cover letter. Don't do that. It's not a good habit. A list of past accomplished from your lab work. You don't have to write your CV on your cover letter. They are not interested. The details of meetings where you've presented this work, you don't have to write before whether it has been accepted in a conference or anywhere, or any feedback you might receive from your research. Just write your information as the corresponding author and then the aim of the journal and then what you actually found, the meaningful information as your cover letter. Then down you can write your co-authors depending on the requirement of the journal. Now we move to the last part of the talk. This part is important because you have already bothered you a lot of things that you need to adjust in order to make a meaningful scientific paper. However, nobody should commit suicide because your paper is not published in a high impact factor. I would walk you through the surrounding myths in publication or the myths surrounding in the publications. How do you publish high quality research? Your research will have to bridge disciplines. If your research is from one discipline to another, for example, your research is on, let's say, it's a gynecology problem solved by microbiological approaches, and the techniques used are molecular methods, okay? And then the problem actually comes from a public health or society problem. So if you bridge disciplines, your publication has a good quality. If you conduct meta-analysis, for example, in public health discipline, if you conduct meta-analysis, your paper is of high quality. If you challenge an existing theory or assumption or test or competing theories, your paper is of high quality. If you combine mediators and moderators, your paper is of high quality. If you develop a new tool to access individual differences, then your paper is of a high quality. So if you look at the hierarchy here on the hierarchy research design, normally the paper that has of highest quality are randomized controlled trial. But randomized controlled trial is not for us. We cannot do that during the postgraduate study. It is only when you become a scientific research scientist that you involve in randomized controlled trial. And non-randomized trial, also current and historical accounts is important. Cohort study, prospective and retrospective, we are doing that as well. You go to the medical hospital records, you take information that might be retrospective, and then you might also make a follow-up, like prospective, and you might take a small cohort or a particular area as a study. Case control study, You might be able to do that. It's also going down the hierarchy as we go, cross-sectional study, case study, and the case report. So this is how the hierarchy goes in. But again, all of these are important. Start with what you can do and then adjust to the scientific community. Is it bad to publish in a low-tier journals? No, it's not bad. It's not bad to publish in a low-tier journals. As long as they are not predatory journals, you can start with a low journal. Every scientist starts with a low journal. A low-tier journal, you are less likely to get high-quality review. That is true. They suggest improving the manuscript. Also, your work is less likely to be found and read by many people. It's true, but we always start with what we have. In English, we say half a bread is better than none. So of course, Nature Tips Jobs is a single publication in a high journal can change your career. You might publish 10 articles in a low impact factor journal, and only one in a high impact factor journal will change your entire life. A colleague of mine, a very good colleague of mine, we met in high school. He's usually the number one in our class. I had to compete him until I gave up. But that is academia. Then he became a good friend of mine, a very loyal person. We studied in the same high school, the same undergraduate studies, and he was the best chemistry and I was the best biology. Then he traveled. Yeah, both of us went for work. We worked for 2 years before we started a master's, and both of us traveled to Turkey, but we went to a different university. Once we completed, I went back home to teach at the university, but he continued, he did not have a stop. He continued with a PhD and in one of the biggest universities in Africa, in Kenya. This is where he traveled to do his PhD in biochemistry. He finished, and then last week, I supposed to discuss something regarding my proceedings on my work. And I was going to tell him, why is it that he's still late up at this night? Then he told me that it's not night, it's morning. He's no more in Kenya, but he's in Canada. Why? Because it's only one thesis work he did on malaria that enabled him to win a research fellowship. Now he finished his PhD, but he could not defend due to the pandemic, and they're going on lockdown. So he left for the fellowship in Canada. Only one publication he did with Nature changed his entire career. So it is important you focus on one than to be writing a lot. I remember a colleague of mine is telling me, Master Chief, you always publish in every month. I said, no. Tell me, but it's been a while, you are not been publishing. I said, yes, because now my scope is only high impact journal. So they are taking time on my paper. I don't want to be publishing on low impact journals anymore. So it is very important to, of course, if you have a good quality, try high impact factor, but don't feel publishing with bad low-tier journals is bad. It needs exceptional quality to publish with high impact factor journals. It provides completely new directions, and the style will be delivery. The communication will give you a publicity plan. How much should be impact factor be a good journal? This is a very good question that people normally ask. In most fields, impact factor of 10 or greater is considered an excellent sum, while 3 is flagged as good and average is less than 1. For example, I omitted, but if you have less than 1, it's an average for some journals. Like some journals are highly specialized, the impact factor is not going to be high. So the way they calculated impact factor, we might not have time here, but if I send the slides, you can look at the way they calculate impact factor. But again, if you want your paper to be cited and higher, you are helping these scientists, the most highly cited paper of all time, 305,000 citations he got. And you know what his famous quotation is, although I really know it's not a good paper, I secretly get a kick out of the response. People will respond to him to say some of the obstacles or challenges that his paper faced. But even though people cited his work. So sometimes it depends on the journal where you publish, the environment, and I will tell you more. If you are not comfortable with impact factor, please consider Q ranking. Q1 articles are normally very decent journal. The impact factor of Q1 might be low. For example, neurology here, that is in neuroepidemiology. The neurology or clinical neurology here is a Q1 journal, but the impact factor is 1.33. So if you look at the impact factor, might be the SGR, 2019, accumulation of impact for 2019 is 1.33. It might be low, but it's Q1 journal. It means at the discipline of neuroepidemiology, this journal is number 1. It's among the best 25 journals. So Q1, Q2 is good. Q3, master's level is also good. Though Q4 is where you start. But if you are good enough, you jump. Now I'm not sending it to any Q2 or Q3. It's only Q2 and Q1 journals that I'm sending my papers to. So the impact factor might be low, but the paper might be, the journal might be very decent. What makes an article high quality? Like I said, 100% unique, no grammar error, no plagiarism. You might not have time to explain more of plagiarism, but it's always difficult for English as a second language speakers to go avoid of plagiarism. You have to take your time. You don't have to copy and paste people's work without paraphrasing, without proper citation. If you do that, you are doing what you call cheating or plagiarism. The research questions as well as the main aim of objectives should be clear and easy to understand for you to make a high quality paper. Your study and limitations will have to be mentioned because no study or no proper research, no tangible research will go without limitations. The paper should mention the limitations of the study or the arguments that can be made against any point given to the reader so that that will help to balance the view of both sides. To evaluate the quality of the journal, the most common measures is journal impact factor. However, the journal impact factor measures of the quality is not tangible. I will explain a bit later. The quality of journal in terms of influence on academic community is very important. In general, a high impact factor, the more important and prestigious a journal is in a particular field. Impact factors are normally huge flawed metric. I will explain. Some people pay attention to them, and definitely it can't help because the best focus on doing a worthwhile research is more important than trying to be baffled with the impact factor. There is a criticism of metrics, for example. It says too often, poorly designed evaluation criteria are dominating minds, means distorting behavior and determining careers. At their worst, metrics can be contributed to what Rowan Williams says. He's a former called it barbatry in our universities. So impact factor should not be used, he said. David Colquhoun also says the University of UCL says it's astonishing that it's still necessary to deploy the journal impact factor almost 20 years after it was totally discredited, yet still mesmerizes many scientists. I guess that shows that how stupid scientists can be outside their own specialties fields. So this is what he said. The impact factor has been discredited 20 years, but still people are obsessed with impact factor. If you want your research to be very much, of course, to have a quality, collaborate with experienced scientists or researchers. You might do your work and then you know a particular professor who has interest in what you are doing. Talk to the professor. You said, I did my work, I finished my work. Will you spare me time, go through my work so that we can add some valuable information or make it standard? If possible, I would definitely want you to be a co-author. This can be beneficial for improving your research and your attract, because once the professor review your paper, now you are learning a lot from the professor, because whatever adjustment you are making, definitely that will stay in you. It will attract reviewer attention. However, some people they believe that if you put professor's name on your paper, it will enable your research to be published. This is not true. In a case of blind review and double blind, nobody knows whether your professor is a co-author or not. So it might not work on that. And again, your professor might be famous in your university, but not to the journal. So who cares who your professor is? It's just the most important thing is this set of people will bring, of course, they will bring valuable research resources and publishing experience, because they're experienced in publishing. So they will tell you which project and significantly increase the initial publication chances. Like the duration you will spend in sending to journals might be reduced to only one, because they will know exactly which journal you will send. And that is what the experience they will bring it to. So they follow the journal instructions only. in order for you to publish quickly in a particular journal. Add an excellent story, excellent numbers. Your figures should be excellent, clear writing, follow the rules of the journals. Let the editor know what you've tried your best. Like, you might not write perfect paper. There is no paper which is perfect, but let the editors know that you have tried your best. You have to be honest. The reviewers we will have to send. For example, I'm a reviewer. We will send our comments to you. Be honest to our comments. Be honest to reviewers' comment. Include extensive document that summarize all the changes that reviewers suggested. It's called reviewers' comment or reviewers' response. Their comment, respond to it in a Word file and make it clear. Whatever information they say, you respond to it, whether you agree to it or you adjust it. If you don't agree, you might want to proof it there, or you proof it on the paper. Stay with the fact. Don't get angry with the modifications. Don't get mad at the reviewers and write, this actually tells that you have no knowledge about this. It definitely shows that your lack of knowledge in this discipline. You don't have to write such. I know it is very tiring, especially if this is a major revision. You have a lot to work on, but that should not make you tear off in order to get angry, to say harsh word to reviewers. You might want to take time before you respond. If they send it to you the first day, read it through, forget about it. Go meet friends. You might even want to talk to it about your friend. You might want to recall some of these things and then come back to it again. Then you actually understand what they are saying. But if you want to do it exactly that particular time, you might lose you might use heat during the process. Discuss with others, then write an answer. Respectful disagreement is what we do. We disagree that this program does not have direct implication for clinicians, for example. That's a very nice way. You can say the literature supports clinics, the literature support our assessment. Then you want to say, moreover, the two key elements of this program. These are very nice ways in which you can argue with the reviewers without any disrespecting. Yes, and then the bottom line here is there is no rocket science in publishing your article with a high impact factor journal. All you need is to make sure you prepare your work very well. It is necessary to focus your documents on essential elements only. The title and the summary, for example. Provide interesting and accurate finding analysis. Write your manuscript, then edit it later. Don't write your manuscript and submit it quickly. Write it, take a day or two, come back to it again. You'll be able to find a lot of typo and errors. You might invite your friend to do as well. Use visual aids to support your argument. Visual aid is very important now. We are working on that at that level. Pick a journal that suits the scope of your paper. Publications are important, but not essential. You might be a PhD student or master student without publication. Don't lose hope. What matters is what you are contributing to the field. Impact factors might be fledged away. It might not represent your journal structure. Your PhD might not lead you to any high article until later on, but it is harder to produce a parent field that might not be supportive. Sometimes it depends on the discipline you are, the area you are. The journal impact factors are not high. That should not tear you off. Still work on what you are doing as your thesis, your PhD or master's. It will play an important role in establishing you in a moving field. Publications are important, but not essential. Like I said, to see yourself as a failure without high impact factor, it might be depressive and ongoing anxiety. Avoid it. Fields such as creative, for example, fields do not produce journal articles, for example. So some artists, musicians, they don't have journal articles, but they are producing nice music. So performing arts performing arts where expression and settings fits better traditional biometric measures in other fields. Your environment too and networks matters. So if your institution too do not have a track record, your university where you are do not have a record of publishing with high impact factor journals, it is going to be difficult for you to publish one. So you don't have to kill yourself. Your expectations and pressure to publish may not be infrastructure during your time during PhD. It depends on the lab you work on, the infrastructure, the equipment, the methodology you produce. So you don't have to kill yourself. But you are doing your PhD in a low university, without good infrastructure. So don't expect to be publishing with Science or Lancet. However, you have a long time plan. You can set yourself up well for the future collaboration that can lead you to such a publications. With that, I think I finished my presentation, and then thank you all for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir. That was very great presentation. And we are come into the question and answer section, and I would like to welcome our brother Romo Samsi Pomalingo. Please, sir. You can open your mic and kindly ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I'm Samsi Pamalingo. I have two questions. First, what is the most effective way to get our article accepted? And second, there are many paid journals. Can you believe it that the quality of the journal is reliable? Thank you. I need your answer, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Host, can you help me with the first question?
Okay, so the first question is, what is the most effective way to get our articles be accepted?
The most effective way to get our article accepted,
Yeah.
that is to be comply with the scope of the journal you are sending. It's the key. If your paper is in the scope of the journal you are sending, that will fast track your acceptance. That is the key. But of course, your science, your information, what you are putting across matters a lot. If it is original, it is novel, you have a standout. You choose the right journal, your information is perfectly written. Actually, the journal will consider your paper for peer review. Then the peer reviewers will go through your paper to adjust up to the standards the way the journal will want it to be. That is the best effective way to enable your paper to be accepted. And the second question, please.
The second question is, there are many paid journals. Can it be believed that the quality of the journals is reliable?
Yeah, there are predatory journals. They are usually flagged with high impact factor. They might write 4.5, 5.0. Actually, they are not peer-reviewed journals. They are not indexed. If you want to know if a particular journal is peer-reviewed or indexed, you might want to see whether they are indexed, they have in PubMed or Web of Science. You might want to try to see their SJP. And if that is the way, you're able to know whether a particular journal is reliable. Like I said, some are not reliable. You don't have to publish with those. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you. Sir,
Yes.
probably sometimes I'm confused to make a difference between novelty and originality. What kind of novelty? It's related to the content or to the method? Thank you.
You're welcome. That is a brilliant question. Novelty, when you say novelty of a paper, means the information is new, a new discovery on Earth, disproving a particular theory, introducing a method, or proving a theory that nobody will do. A long existing theory is in the scientific community, and you came to either prove it or disprove it. That is novel. You bring in something new. It's novel. However, originality means what you are producing is original. It's your work. Yes. But again, the information is not new, but the approach in which you do to that particular paper makes it original.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much for the question and the answer. So any other question from other participants? Please kindly, you can raise up your hand or you can directly also open your mic. Anyone? All right, I also have a question from a participant here.
Yeah.
While waiting for others, you can also write it in the chat section. The question is, how much does it cost to publish one international journal with high impact? And is there any free journal for that?
Yes, there are a number of free journals with high impact factor. However, it's very difficult to publish with them. But again, it depends on your work. If your work is good and is in the scope of that journal, the chances of them to accept your paper is high. There are paid journals, and these journals charges different. The list I paid for the previous months was $1,500 US. You might be paying, like I paid $2,000, $2,500, $2,900 for a journal. Like when I say I paid for, it's not my money. It's the university who will pay it on my behalf. So yes, this is very important. If you actually know that the university is not going to pay, your professor is not going to pay from the university's money, you don't have to bother yourself at submitting your paper to a high impact factor journal or Q2 or Q1 because they charge most of the time. Yes, back to you, Madam Host.
Okay, so I want to add into that answer, like for a journal itself, is there any minimum words or maximum, like
Yes.
for it to be a high impact?
Yes, of course, of course. There are, every journal will have, some will be open because we proofread a colleague of mine's paper on food science and engineering. That journal is of high impact factor of 11, yeah, but they have no word count limit. However, many of the journals will have a word count. And for research paper, they might want you to write 4,000 minimum, 4,500 words. Review, you might be lucky to go up to 5,000, 6,000. Majority, the maximum is 8,000. So there are word counts for many of the journals. You click on the manuscripts guide, where you say author's guides, then you look at the manuscript. If your paper is review, click on review. If it is research, you click on research, editorial, commentary. You will see the requirements for that particular journal. Then you adjust your paper to the word count.
Okay. Wow. The next question is, what is the most reason the reviewer will reject our manuscript?
What is the most?
What is the reason, actually? What is the reason the reviewer will reject our manuscript?
Yes, it is the duty for the editor to reject your manuscript, not the reviewer. The editor will reject your manuscript based on reviewer's comment. Sometimes it will not even go for peer review. The editor will look at it. It does not match in the scope of the journal, they will reject it.
Okay.
The writing style, the structure and everything is not in proper manner. If you are lucky, they will ask you to adjust it. If you are not, they will reject it. Sometimes if they will ask you to select reviewers when you are submitting, if you submit a reviewer in which actually you've once published an article with them, they might want to check on that particular reviewer's index. If they click on Ilmia and they know I and Ilmia, we had a paper in common, and I put Ilmia as a reviewer, sometimes they doubt and they will send your paper back to you, but they will never tell you. There are, of course, there are other factors that I might not mention. What editorial will look at your paper, and reject it. Sometimes, of course, if you cook data, if your information is not accurate, many people will cook data, the information is not accurate, and the editors will be able to know quickly, and they will turn it down.
Oh, that's hard.
Yes, it's happening.
Okay. So the next question is, if we don't have research, but we want to publish a journal, what's the best way should we take?
If we have a research and we want to publish to a journal,
If we don't have research.
yeah, you do review paper.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
So you just read the previous journal from others and
make a good and a coherent analysis.
yeah, that's right. But talking about that, you know, you were mentioned about originality and new stuff or novel. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one. It's like, you know, we have thousands journal in this world. And talking about how to say internet, everyone can have an access to that.
Mhm.
It's very easy to copy and paste one sentence after one sentence from one journal to another journal. How will the how to say the reader, if I could say so, knows that this one is original or not? If I like say I collected from, you get me right, Australian
Mhm.
publicator, and then another one from Canada, another one, how will they know? How will they notice it actually?
Yes, you know, remember you are sending your article to an international journal with peer reviewers.
Yeah.
These peer reviewers actually are experts in that field.
Oh, okay.
They know the current level of science, where the science stop in that particular level. So if you bring in something which actually they know before, they conclude that it's not novel.
Okay.
Again, it might be original. The information you put, for example, you do a systematic review, meta-analysis, you find some information, you write, you prove a theory, this proof is original. But if you feel like you will copy from one paper, you copy another one without making analysis or paraphrasing, there is a machine called plagiarism detector.
Oh,
Once they put your paper in that detecting machine, it will tell you the amount of copy or cheating you did. If the cheating goes beyond 20%, they will reject your paper.
all right. That one is if we send to the journal, how to call, if we send our journal, I mean, to them.
Yeah, if you send your paper, to a peer reviewed journal.
Yeah, but how if we okay, let's say sometimes if you want to graduate, journal is one of the most important things, like you have to have it. But sometimes it's not a must to send it to a peer researchers. Like you can make it and you can just give it to your, how to say, your professor as a proof. Or sometimes people also can just post it, like they make their own website. Do you get me? The journal itself, actually they copy it from others, like what I just said before, but they didn't send it to the peer researchers. Like they just post it in their, let's say, their Facebook or their own website. Yeah. Then how do we know?
You mean predatory journal?
Yeah.
Yeah, you will know, because predatory journal, normally you don't receive reviewers' comment.
Oh, all right.
So
okay.
if in a peer review journal, they will send you reviewer comments where you have to review, major review, minor review, you adjust it and send it back. That is normally it's a long procedure. That is why it takes months before a paper is published.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other question from our participant? Please. Let me check. I think it's clear enough. So talking about it, do you have anything to say, sir?
Yes, just that nobody should be discouraged. Every scientist starts with one paper, with a one poor non-structured paper. And then you move to 2, 3, 4, and 5, very nice, strong, structured with high impact factor paper. So everyone will have to start it from somewhere. Nobody should be discouraged. And this is science. Don't believe the scientists or your professors or anyone, please believe the science. It will happen. One professor once told me that the paper I wrote, I invited him for us to publish. He told me that this paper is not good. It's not going to be accepted anywhere. I don't want my name to be there. I said, okay. I went ahead and I sent it to a peer review journal and it got accepted. And I sent him the link to let him know that every professor starts from somewhere. So nobody should discourage you. You might come from Indonesia, your paper will be read in America. So it does not matter where you come from, which university you are. What matters is how much time you spend on your lab, how much time you spend on your paper, writing, reading people's literature. It will add up. And again, if you know something too as well, you need to collaborate with people, share it. Through that, you will learn a lot. The best way to learn is to teach. I think that will be my last words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Please, everyone, kindly, if you haven't filled the attendance list for tonight, kindly click the link in the comment section, in the chat sections, I mean. And also, I would like to inform us, actually, our speaker for today, he's an academia standard also. He's a lecturer, he's an international student, means he knows English more than us, especially Indonesian. English is not our language. So if you guys want to publish your journal into internationally known, please, and maybe you are not confident enough with your grammar or your sentences, or maybe actually basically if you are not confident enough, kindly you can meet our sir Usman Bajinka. You can contact him. You can also check his profile. You can check it. You can send message to PBIT Changsa in Instagram. Yeah, you can reach us. And there is a proofreading and editing. The price, it's per 1,000 word counts. The price is only 50 USD. You can compare. Before he was talking about 2,000, 1,000. That's too much, especially we are a student. Especially US dollar is not our money.
Yeah.
I think this
I'm
is
sorry,
very
sorry,
very
host.
affordable.
Sorry,
Yes, please.
maybe I need some information about Osman. Maybe you can write down his name, complete name, and email and phone number.
Okay, his contact. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
I have his CV actually. If anyone need it, you can also contact me or contact our keynote speaker directly. Yeah, I will send you his CV so you will know more about him. And he can help us in writing a thesis, report, conceptual documents, review, and etc. So, and if you want to know more about it, I'm gonna send it. You can reach us actually in our Instagram, in our WhatsApp, and in our WeChat. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's it. Anyone, any more questions before we end today's meeting? Okay.
I just
Okay,
want to
so-
say hello for for Professor Osman. Hello, Professor.
Hi, not
Yeah.
a professor. Let me. I'm not a professor. I'm a student yet. Well, it's a prayers. I would say Amen.
Yeah, Amen. Thank you.
Yes, I would say Amen. Yeah, I'm yet to complete my PhD, and of course, yes, with the number of the publications, I think if I finish my PhD, it will be very easy for me to move to the level of professor.
All right. So please, before we end the meeting, sir, kindly turn off your share screen so that we can take a
Yes.
picture of all the participants.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, guys, open your camera so I can take our picture together. Don't forget to smile. We're gonna post this into.
There are gentlemen here. I never knew.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Please, the rest, kindly open your camera, please. We are waiting. All right. Let me count it from 3. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, one more time. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Thank you so much, each and everyone, for tonight,
Thank
for your
you.
time. Have a blessed night. Have a wonderful night. Especially, it's an honor to have you here, sir, our speaker, our teacher.
Oh no, your colleague. Thank you. Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine.
Yeah.
The pleasure is mine.
谢谢老师。
Thank you. 不用洗，
Hello, sir.
谢谢老师。
不用洗，不用洗。我不是老师。Hey.
Bye bye, everyone. Good night.
Well,
We'll see you in the next meeting. Bye.
Bye，晚上好。
Thank you very much. 晚上好。